Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Guys Magic. This is Hunter and Riley. Say what up, Riley.
Hello.
We are back. You guys clicked on the video. You guys saw the thumbnail. This is the $300 upgrade to the Sultai Arisen deck. But before we get started, I just want to remind everybody uh, there's been a lot of confusion about these Commander Precon decks because on the box it shows Kotis and it shows Taval, just like all the other four. Like it shows each clan like leader and then also the spirit dragon for that clan. And that's what they said. Each one is interchangeable. So we've gone around the internet. You can even look it up and find that pretty much everyone agrees that all the clan leaders are the face commanders. Now that has been a kind of speculation around the community of like this is the real face commander. That's fine. But for this video in specific, we believe the face commander is Kotis, correct, Riley?
We're going to go with Kotis.
Okay, perfect. So you're here to see Kotis. If you guys wanted to see Taval, we did do that video as well. That is on our Patreon. Like always, we only do the face commanders here on YouTube. Always do the backups on Patreon. So check the link in the description if you wanted to check that out. But Kotis, $300 upgrade, Sultai Arisen. Riley, let's go ahead and talk about the commander. Remind the people what it does and kind of the direction the deck wants to go.
Yeah, so Kotis is a black, a green, and a blue for a legendary creature zombie warrior. He's a 3/3, and he says, once during each of your turns, you may cast a creature spell from your graveyard by exiling 3 other cards from your graveyard in addition to paying its other costs. And then he also says, whenever one or more creatures you control enter, if one or more of them enter from the graveyard or was cast from a graveyard, you put 2+1/+1 counters on Kotis. So just kind of playing around with this. This is a commander that allows you to have additional resources. Obviously, through your graveyard, you can recast things, gives them all that kind of like escape mechanic. And then past that, he does grow relatively large relatively quickly.
Perfect. So the name of the game is Bring Back Creatures from the Grave.
Yep.
Easy enough. All right. Well, before we get started, everyone just hit the like button to let us know that you guys liked this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, so you're staying up to date with all the other stuff that we're putting out. But let's go ahead and move on to these additions. But before we move on to the brand new additions, this is a sequel to the $100 upgrade. So if you haven't seen that, check the description and you'll see that video of why all of the cards on screen, Riley, you're keeping from that 100 upgrade, right?
This is a direct continuation. So yeah, there's been no alterations past that point. Anything that made it into the 100 makes it into the 300 as well.
Perfect. Well, I'm excited to see some of the new additions. So kick us off with some of these creatures.
So the first creature I wanted to throw in here is a little bit more on the expensive side, but he's just kind of like a bigger hit. This is Mikaeus the Unhallowed. It is 3 and 3 black for 6 mana. You get a legendary creature, Zombie Cleric. It's a 5/5 with Intimidate. And he says whenever human deals damage to you, destroy it. That's pretty relevant because humans are the most popular creature type, so that's kind of nice. And he lastly has other non-human creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Undying. That Undying part is really powerful because that means that they would die. They're going to kind of like bounce the graveyard, and then they'll come back with a +1/+1 counter on it. So pretty impactful ability there.
Yeah, it triggers Kotis because it does see that leaving the grave coming back.
Yep. The
Oh,
other creature that I'm putting in here is Hermit Druid. This is 1 and a green for a creature human druid. It's a 1/1 as an ability where we can pay a green and tap it, reveal cards from the top of our library until we reveal a basic land card, put the card into our hand, and then put all other cards revealed this way into the graveyard. This is just going to be another really effective mill piece. It's a relatively cheap creature, and we can continue to mill so long as we have a green and this thing untapped. So it's a pretty powerful effect, allows us to fill up our graveyard quickly.
yeah, definitely. Hermit Druid. I'm not surprised to see it here. Moving on. Looks like those were all the creatures. Let's go ahead and talk about. You got some enchantments now.
Yeah, so with us having a little bit of a bigger budget, this means that we can kind of splurge a little bit more with some of the enchantments. So the first card here is Out of the Tombs. This is 2 and a black for an enchantment. It says at the beginning of your upkeep, you put 2 Eon counters on Out of the Tombs. Then you mill a card equal to the number of Eon counters on it. So it's kind of continuous mill in that regard, which is nice for our deck. It also says if we would draw a card while our library has no cards in it, instead return a creature card from the graveyard to the battlefield. And if we can't, we lose the game. So a little bit of a drawback on that one. But if we don't have any cards left over in our library because we've milled ourselves out, we're not punished. We're actually kind of rewarded because now it further synergizes with our commander.
That is a bit scary of just having a lose the game text on a card, but hey, it's kind of rare for that to happen, right?
Yeah. Plus, you know what? just looking around, I thought this was a really cool card. I didn't see it included in too many of these decks, and I wanted to kind of like, I don't know, play around with something that was unique.
Yeah, definitely. I can see it.
I also have Journey to Eternity in this list. This is a black and a green for a legendary enchantment aura. It says enchant creature you control. Whenever the enchanted creature dies, return it to the battlefield under your control. Then return Journey to Eternity to the battlefield transformed under your control. So we get a little ability trigger from our commander on that one with something dying and then coming back. And whenever this does come back, it enters as Atzal Cave of Eternity, which is a cool land that allows us to tap to add 1 mana of any color to our mana pool. Or we can pay 3, a black and a green, tap it, and just return a target creature card from our graveyard to the battlefield. So 5 mana recursion stapled onto a land. So it's kind of difficult for our opponents to deal with that.
Yeah, that's very good if you can get that to flip. That's yeah, like you said, really hard for people to deal with. Unless you're playing against someone that's evil with land destruction.
Nobody does that.
No comment from Riley.
And then the last enchantment that I'm going to be putting in here, I tried to avoid this card, but I mean, this deck really just needs card draw, and I happen to have enough of my budget for it, so I am putting in Rhystic Study. It's 2 and a blue for an enchantment. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may draw a card unless that opponent plays or pays 1. Probably one of the most famous lines in Magic is "Do you pay the 1?" And this card earns its stripes for a reason.
Yep, without a doubt, one of, if not the best card draw engine in all of Magic. So, easy to include. That looks like all of the enchantments. I do see 2 artifacts, specifically equipment.
Yeah, so one of the ways that our deck is going to have the potential to win is by dealing enough commander damage with Kotis. Like I mentioned at the very beginning of the video, he does get relatively large pretty quickly, so I want to be able to capitalize on that. The first equipment that we have in here is Sword of Light and Shadow. For 3 mana, you get an equipment that says the equipped creature gets +2/+2, and protection from white and black. Super important because that's going to eliminate a lot of our opponent's potential removal for our commander. It also says whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you gain 3 life, and then you may return up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. It's not directly to the battlefield, so sadly, it's not really like triggering our commander in that regard, but it does allow us to continue to play around with things in our graveyard while providing a little bit of a pump as well as a little bit of protection.
Yeah, the protection from white and black is so good because what is removal if not white or black?
And then I am also going to be putting in Shadow Spear for 1 mana. We get an equipment that says the equipped creature gets +1/+1, has trample and lifelink. It also has another ability where we can pay 1 and permanents your opponent's control lose hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Kind of a weird ability, but I mean, it's kind of nice to have in case your opponent's, I don't know, board wiper or something. A Blasphemous Act comes down, and then now you don't need to worry about the thing that had indestructible. And this has an equip cost of 2.
Yeah, Shadow Spear, a fantastic card. The ability on an equipment is insane. I remember like Shadow Spear back in the day was a powerhouse, still a powerhouse. And hey, if we get a new version, I bet it will say Hexproof, Indestructible, and Ward. Because Ward is becoming the new thing. But still, Shadow Spear, fantastic. And finally, it looks like you shored up your mana base a bit. Talk to me about these cards.
Yeah, this is one of the areas that I felt like this precon was kind of lacking in a little bit more. Little disappointed in the mana base for these precons, to be completely honest, especially kind of looking at some of the other ones that we've gotten as of late. But I did want to throw in all 3 of the bond lands for these colors. So that being Morphic Pool, Undergrowth Stadium, and Rejuvenating Springs. The way that these lands work is that they enter the battlefield tapped unless you have 2 or more opponents, which in a game of EDH you probably will be able to meet that clause throughout the course of the game, and then they can tap for 1 of 2 different colors, respectively.
You think they're ever going to print these in precon products?
No. But these, in all fairness, are not the most expensive cards out there, so I'm kind of happy so far that they haven't like skyrocketed in price. Just kind of hoping that they stay this way.
That's true.
2 more lands included in here. I forgot the name of this cycle, so I apologize. Somebody remind me in the comments down below. But both of these cards come from Innistrad, Deathcap Glade, and Shipwreck Marsh. They both say that they enter the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands. So play these on turn 3 or past that point. They come in untapped, and they can tap for 1 of 2 different colors as well.
I think they're called slow lands because they come in untapped slowly compared to fast lands where they come in if you have less.
All right, yep, pick up the slow lands.
It looks like 2 more lands.
Yep, 2 more lands. If you haven't been able to tell, I touched up the mana base on this one quite a bit. Next card here is Underground River. I don't know why. This card was not included in the Precon. We have another one of the Pain lands, but this one wasn't it. So I'm going to be throwing this one in here. It's a land that you can tap for a colorless, or you can tap it for a blue or a black, but if you do, you lose 1 life. Totally worth it. It's fine. Throw those in your deck.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the last land we're going to be playing around with, it honestly just wouldn't be a graveyard style deck if we didn't have this. This is Phyrexian Tower. It's a legendary land that you can tap for a colorless, or you can tap it, sacrifice a creature, and add 2 black mana. So a little bit of ramp there, and it allows us to put stuff into our graveyard.
Powerful land. Phyrexian Tower is really good. But that looks like all of the additions for this $300 upgrade. Is that right?
Yep, this is all of the additions. I tried to keep this one relatively, well, not super long of a list because I know that I definitely kind of altered things with an aggressive hand for the 100.
No problem. Totally understand it. Happens to the best of us. We're trying to upgrade the best of our abilities. But let's get into the cuts. But before we do, once again, a reminder, everything on the screen is staying cut from the $100 upgrade, correct?
That is also true. Yeah. So just like the 100, anything that didn't make it into the 100, anything that got cut there is also going to be removed from this.
Cool. All right. Well, you got some spicy new cards for the 300. Show me what's being removed to make room for them.
So the first card that I'm going to be cutting is Diviner of Mist. It is 4 and a blue for a creature dragon. It's a 4/5 with flying, and it says whenever this creature attacks, you mill 4 cards. It also says you may cast an instant or sorcery spell from your graveyard with mana value 4 or less without paying its mana cost. If that spell would be put into a graveyard, exile it instead. I like this card in all honesty. I just don't really care for it so much in this deck. I feel like it's a little bit odd because we are so much of like a creature reanimation that this is now trying to take advantage of like a spell slinger reanimation, or at least like being able to use those instants and sorceries a second time. So I just felt like this was kind of an odd include.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird include. I think it prefers to vol here just a little bit more, but still weird.
Yeah, and then very similarly, I'm also going to be removing Tassiger the Golden Fang. This is 5 and a black for a legendary creature human shaman. It's a 4/5 with Delve, and it has an ability in which you can pay 2 and hybrid of green, blue, green, blue. It says mill 2 cards, then return a non-land card of an opponent's choice from your graveyard to your hand. This is a powerhouse of a commander whenever you build around him, but in this list, Delve isn't really something that I want to be doing. I don't really want to be eating up my graveyard unless I'm, well, doing things with my commander. And then past that point as well, I don't know. It's reanimating cards back to my hand. And it's my opponent's choice. This is just not the kind of deck that I want Tassiger to be in. I want him to be at the helm of a deck where no matter what my opponent gives me, it's bad for them, and this is just not that kind of deck.
Yeah, your opponent will always give you the worst thing possible. Having no capability of picking what you want is never good, in my opinion.
Next up, I'm going to be removing Consuming Aberration. This is 3, a blue, and a black for a creature horror. It's a star, and it says this creature's power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards in my opponent's graveyards. It also says whenever I cast a spell, for each opponent reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a land card, and then they put those cards into their graveyard. This is a really cool opponent mill deck card. This is not a deck that wants to do any of that. We want to be milling ourselves, and that actually doesn't do anything here. It's a big dumb beater that has like an alternative assist, but it's not really assisting because it's not our game plan.
Yeah, your game plan is not milling your opponents. It's such a weird include in this deck. But that looks
Yeah.
like the final creature. Looks like we got 2 sorceries we're removing.
Yeah, 2 sorceries, the first of which is Casualties of War. I have done my absolute best to love this card, and I kind of suck at that. This is 2 2 black and 2 green. For 6 mana, you get a sorcery. It says choose 1 or more. Destroy target artifact, creature, enchantment, land, or planeswalker. And of course, you can choose all of those so long as you have that many relevant targets. This is a hugely impactful card. It's really, really, really cool. It is very difficult to be able to cast this. It's also 6 mana and it's a sorcery. So like this is not where I like my removal to be.
Yeah, 6 mana is hefty.
The next card that I'm going to be cutting is Treasure Cruise. Hurts my soul to remove this card from a deck. It is 7 and a blue. For 8 mana, you get a sorcery. It has Delve, and it says draw 3 cards. Normally, this is a single blue mana to draw 3, and that's fantastic. In this deck, however, we are going to be eating our graveyard for other things. Goodbye, Treasure Cruise. Enjoy your voyage.
Enjoy your voyage. The floor for this card is if you get your graveyard exiled, you're bummed because that's what your deck wants to do. But this is still 8 mana.
Yeah.
Looks like 2 artifacts coming out as well.
Yeah, 2 artifacts. The first of which also kind of hurt my heart a little bit. Removing this is Conduit of Worlds. 2 and 2 green for 4 mana. You get an artifact that says you may play lands from your graveyard, which is really good because we're a mill deck, and that means that, well, you'll pretty much always have access to lands. It also has an ability where you can tap it and choose target non-land permanent in your graveyard. If you haven't cast a spell this turn, you may cast that card. If you do, you can't cast any additional spells this turn, and activate only as a sorcery. Conduit of Worlds really is just kind of like the Crucible of Worlds at home. I feel like that second ability is one that I don't think I've ever actually used unless I am like in utter desperation time. It's cool that you can do it, but like the fact that that just shuts off what you're doing for the rest of the turn kind of kills it.
Yeah, usually you want to do 2 things after reanimating something.
Also, we have Essence Anchor. This is 2 and a blue for an artifact. At the beginning of your upkeep, surveil 1, and then you can tap it to create a 2/2 black zombie druid creature token. Activate only during your turn and only if a card left your graveyard this turn. This card is kind of bonkers, nutty powerful with Taval, but doesn't do as much here with Kotis. I just feel like it's a little bit slower, not quite as consistent. And although I do love Surveil 1 at the beginning of my upkeep, there's just other things in this deck that are more, it's more effective at just like aggressively milling. So,
Yeah, more important things that you threw in that just had to make room for. And hey, for those watching at home, if you like the cards that we've removed, you can put them back. This is just one iteration of a deck. But moving on to that iteration, we did see you add a bunch of lands. Which lands are we cutting to make room?
Celifid Coliseum is the first land here. This is a land that you can tap to deal 1 damage to yourself, and it'll give you a blue. It also has a threshold where you can pay a blue and tap it, as well as sacrifice it. Target player, you, draws 3 cards and then discards 3 cards. Activate only if 7 or more cards in your graveyard. This is not card draw. This is not card advantage. Well, I guess it's card draw, but it's not card advantage. You're drawing 3 and then you're discarding 3, plus you're losing a land in the process. I don't like this land.
Yeah. Are you sure you don't want to target someone else to give them card draw?
I don't think so. Contaminated Aquifer is a land that is both an island and a swamp, and that's all of its redeeming qualities. It taps for either a blue or a black, and it always enters tapped. Don't like tap lands.
No.
Very similarly, Fetid Pools is a land that is also an island and a swamp. It also always enters tapped, but its redeeming quality is that you can cycle this away for 2. So whenever you draw this and you're disappointed that it doesn't have the ability to tap right away, you can just put it in your graveyard and hopefully draw a basic land instead.
Yeah, I love the fact that adding cycling too makes it a common to a rare.
Yep. Drownyard Temple is kind of an odd one here. It is. Let me explain. This is a land that can tap for a colorless, and it doesn't enter the battlefield tapped, which already, this is much better than the cards I previously talked about. It has an ability on top of this too, where you can pay 3 mana. If you do, you return it from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped, so that's kind of cool. But this isn't a deck that's really trying to capitalize on like circulating those lands. Once this is in play, it's never going to do anything aside from just tap for mana. I do understand that this card is pretty neat, and that, yeah, if we mill it over, we have the ability to get it back, but it's kind of just like a one-time effect for a colorless land.
Yeah, you're a 3-color deck, so less colorless lands.
Myriad Landscape, I don't know why I should even need to talk about this card. I hate this one. This is land that always enters battlefield tapped. You can tap it for a colorless, and you can pay 2 mana to go get 2 other cards that you wish this was instead.
It's true.
This is one of my least favorite cards in all of Magic. But you know what? On the bright side, I will say this deck did not include a Temple of the False God. So, Wizards of the Coast, you're improving.
There you go.
Terramorphic Expanse. This is land that you can tap and sacrifice it to go search your library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield tapped. It's cute. It's a little bit of fixing, but as long as you have a decent mana base, you don't need this.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last card I'm going to be cutting is Temple of Malady. This is a land that enters the battlefield tapped, but whenever it does, you also scry 1, and you can tap it for either a black or a green. So this one, I guess, at least does something mildly impactful, and it does allow you to scry, but enter the battlefield tapped. Those are some magic words that I just can't get behind.
No, get rid of the temples. Always. I feel like we always do that in every upgrade, and they just keep throwing the temples in every single precon. But is that it? Is that all of the additions and the cuts for this $300 upgrade to Sultai Arisen?
That is it. Those are all going to be, or that's going to be all the changes. So we have put some additional power behind Kotis. All in all, I would say this deck is quite a bit of fun. I do think that it is, I don't know, just kind of like pretty solid right out of the box. And I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this.
Okay, well, let me ask you a question. We gave you $300 to improve this deck. After all of the additions, what was the amount of money you spent?
It's about 300. However, prices of this deck have been fluctuating. So right now it looks like it's actually on a downward trend.
That's great. Pre-order prices always fluctuate downwards. Yeah, I like it. I know you kind of just touched on picking up the deck, but do you have any final thoughts on Kotis as a commander?
Yeah, my final thoughts on the deck, though, I do actually really enjoy this. I feel like this commander is pretty cool. Although I'm not going to lie, I do have a thing for dragons, so I'm a little bit biased whenever it comes to which one of the two legendary creatures out of this box are my favorite. But Kotis definitely still a really cool one. I love the graveyard recursion themes.
Well, perfect. I like what you've done with the deck. I'm terrified to play against it when we do our $300 upgrade battle. So those of you watching, want to stay subscribed so you don't miss that, because I'm sure it'll be a blast. Also hit that like button since you're still here, and check the description for not only the deck list for this entire deck right there, but also all the links to our social media accounts. Follow us on those as well to check out what we got going on. And on the screen right now, those are all of our Patreon subscribers. Thank you guys so much for your added support. It really does mean the world to us. If you guys wanted to check out what they're seeing, which includes the backup to Sultai Arisen with Taval at the helm, over there, exclusive on our Patreon. Look at the link in the description and consider subscribing. But a very special shout out to our Gains Indestructible tier, starting with Brian Ganella,
Daryl Tripp,
Demarion Turner,
Dr. Rome,
Jimmy Ward,
Kevo,
Larry Killian,
Thrifty PSGR,
and Tim K. You guys are awesome. Appreciate every single one of you. And until the next video, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Peace.
Later.